Welcome to Sew with Monty. This is part 3 of the bomber jacket, and we're getting ready to put the zipper in. And I've pinned the zipper to just the seam allowance alone, and I've got the zipper turned inside out so that I can compare both sides of my jacket in relation to the zipper to make sure that my pockets are lined up and my bottom trim is lined up. The first thing I want to show you is on the top, you want to have a little ease below your collar. So when you actually sew this, you're going to be about 1/8 of an inch below the actual seam line here. It's hard to see, but you don't want this stop, the stop of your zipper, to be right up on top of your collar. So you need about 1/8 of an inch there. So we've got it pinned with a little bit of ease from that area. And then the second part is I've lined my pockets up here so that they're definitely in line. This is real important because you don't want one pocket higher than the other. And then down here, I've done the same thing at the waistband. I've got it lined up so that they're perfectly in line. Now as you see right here, I've got about 1/8 of an inch ease here as well, so that when I turn this up, the actual tab is not right next to the zipper. It's okay to have these little ease areas. It makes it more comfortable to sew, and it actually looks a little better. It doesn't crowd the zipper quite so much. Now, I've got my pins at a slight angle on the sewing side of this side, and I'm going to unzip it carefully. I'm just going to reach my hand up here and unzip it. Note that I've got pins at the neck on this side, at the pocket, and the waistband, just to hold those in place because those are the critical areas of my zipper. Once I have it unzipped and released, I'm going to take the tab and I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle of this, because now this is the way I'll sew this. And I'll sew down to the tab, stop, lift my foot up, zip it up, and keep on going. So I'm going to leave my tab somewhere around the middle of this zipper. Now the other side doesn't have the tab, so you can pretty much sew it freely all the way down through here. If you pin it with the zipper closed and in the proper place, you won't get confused and have your teeth on the wrong side of the opening and sew this zipper in upside down or backwards. So just be careful to remember to start pinning it with it closed and then unpin it to finish finishing off your pins. So this side is going to be sewn this direction, so I'm going to put my pins in at an angle like this. I'm just going to leave that pin in there because it's a critical holding point because of where it's at. When you put your pins in, don't take a big bite of fabric because it crinkles the zipper and it distorts the length of the zipper. I'm keeping mine about 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge because it's a 1/2 inch tape on a 5/8 inch seam allowance. And we'll move it over here because it's a little off there. But you want to keep that consistent up through here so you don't get your zipper crooked too. And once you have it all pinned, like this, you can go over to the sewing machine and you can start sewing it. Don't worry about the extension of the tape up here. We'll take care of that when we do our lining. So now we have it. We're going to sew this side in and we're going to sew this side in of our zipper. So let's go to the sewing machine and I'll show you how that's done. We're ready to set the zipper in with our sewing machine. I'm using a centered needle and I've got my zipper foot to the right. And I've got it on 3.5 length, a little longer than I normally sew, but this is kind of thick and I want to be able to get through this without having it chew up and make a knot. The first part of this has a plastic coating on it, so you may want to just hand crank this for a little bit just to make sure it's going to go through there, and then back up just a little bit and carry forward. Now as you're sewing this, there's a little line here on the tape. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a difference in the weave. You want to try to keep your stitch outside this line where the weave changes. Otherwise you're going to be too close to the teeth of the zipper and it's going to be hard for it to zip up and down. So we're just going to go carefully up through here and we're going to set one side and then we're going to turn around and set the other side. I'm trying to keep my zipper and these critical points lined up so that it doesn't move off track, and then my pockets and my waistband are out of position. So we'll just sew it through here. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew this side, and I'll sew this side, and then I'm going to meet you back over at the table and show you the next step. The zipper is set in, and if you notice, my actual seam is not right up on top of my teeth. This gives me good passage for my pull, the slide, to work. And also, there's a limit how close I can get with a quick release zip foot. It won't go over the teeth like a normal zipper, so it'll only ride next to the teeth, which only gives me so much space that I can get close to that zipper at. Not a bad thing though, because when I put my lining on, it'll be the same thing, and it'll be ensured that it won't get caught in the zipper when I'm using it. Now let's focus on the tabs. We're going to finish them off now. So I'm going to unzip the jacket, and I'm going to fold the seam back like this on both sides. And I've intentionally left the tab longer than need be because I wanted more than I needed up here. What we're going to do is fold it up, lining it up with the bottom of our rib here, and we're going to end up sewing this up so it's clean finished on the bottom of the zipper. Now I don't need all of this fabric anymore, so I'm going to start trimming it off. And I want to keep it approximately at 5/8 inch above my seam line here where the band is on. Now if you need to measure this, please do. Don't just do this and make a mistake and cut it too short at this point. That would not be good. So I'm going to cut this side off, making sure I stay 5/8 above, just like that. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew this area up right here. Again, we'll need our zipper foot to do this little area. And then once we have this area, we're going to take this side and flip it over. It's a little challenging to get in here, but we're going to sew as high as we can right here. Now we won't be able to get all the way, but we want to clean finish this area if at all possible too. So this area will get sewn on both sides. We're going to sew this area right here and our zipper. Again, this will not go all the way up because it's already attached to the zipper, but as far up as we can get, we're going to sew this and we're going to sew this. So let's go back to the machine and get this done, and then we'll have our lining to set. Now this is what I was talking about, the challenge of this back plate where the quick release is. It doesn't pass over the teeth of the zipper very well, so you have to make sure you're aligned in such a manner that you can successfully sew this seam. Remember, there's the plastic dip on the bottom, so it's a little hard to go through. I like to start off slow, just nice and slow, because you want to maybe semi-hand crank it, but go slow here. And then once you have it gone through, and you just go slow in that part because there is plastic on that little tip of the zipper, like a coating. Now we can go ahead and sew it up through here, and I'm only going to sew until I reach the seam. I'm going to leave this loose. So I'm going to sew up to reach the seam, and then I'm going to back up just like that. And I'm going to do this on both sides of my zipper. And after I'm done with this, I'm going to take this little corner and I'm going to clip it. So I'm about 1/8 of an inch from the seam. That'll allow it to turn easily. Now on the other side, this side, I can't get all the way up in here. I'm going to just flip my pins over. And I'm going to sew up through here on this side. Now I'm just going to release my zipper foot, put on my regular foot, and sew this little edge up. This is going to look really good when we finish our lining, and you'll see in a moment why we're doing it this way. So I'm going to flip it over here and redo my pins because I want to get as close to this edge as I can, and I can get closer with the front of the foot than I can the back of the foot. So all pins out, except for this one just to hold it, and I'm going to stitch right over the seam where I attach the rib. So just going forward a little bit, back up, and I can only go so far again. So I'm just going to hold it and go as far as I can comfortably go here, and then I'll back up there. Try not to get any tucks in here, just go slow, and when you get up there, just back up a little bit to lock it, and you're done. Now I'm going to do this on both sides. I'm going to clip this corner and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So all strings get trimmed here, and then I'm going to turn it this way, and you'll be able to see how nice that's looking? And then when we get our lining in here and all of our top stitching on our jacket, it's going to look really smart. But that's a clean finish on the inside edge of your waistband. So let me do the other side, and I'll meet you back at the table, and we'll start pinning in the lining. The tabs are set, and they look very nice. I wanted to say something about them though. In the future, and maybe I should have done this too, if your fabric is a little mushy, make sure you put a little interfacing in here. That'll make it a little easier to control. So that might have been an option here too, but I'm still happy with it. I think it looks very nice. So I'm going to move on and show you how to do the lining. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to bag the jacket lining. And that's the term they use for this. We're going to turn it inside out completely. And this is a little bit of a confusing step, but when you're done, it is so amazing because you have none or very little hand stitching after you're finished. So what we're going to do here is we're going to lay this out inside out with the right sides up toward us. And then I'm going to flip all the bands in like this. And I'm going to flip the neck down like this and leave the arms out. And then we're going to take the wrong side of this little lining and turn it out. Like this. And we're going to sew these together here as far down as we can get. Now this is where I'm talking about you may not get all the way down because of this little issue here. But you go as far as you can, and then you pin and sew all the way around the neck. And then you go over here and you pin all the way down this side. Just like this. And make sure your zipper's inside the seam. So it'll go around the neck and all the way down this side. Same thing. You're not going to get all the way to the teeth or to the bottom of the corner where the band is, but you'll get close. And then you're going to take it, fold this up, skip over this little corner, and you're going to pin and sew all the way around the bottom. So let me finish pinning this part so you can see it, and then I'll take you to step 2 of putting this lining in. So now we have the jacket turned inside out and the lining turned inside out, and we've got them face to face. And what I've done is pinned around the neckline, right sides together, the lining and the jacket. I've also pinned both sides along the zipper, right sides together, the zipper turned in, and just got the seam allowance, and I've pinned this down. You can only go so far here because of this corner. That's okay. Just go as far as you can comfortably and stop. Then I've done the bottom along the waistband. The waistband's turned up in there and it's face to face, and I've pinned all along the bottom. So the entire jacket around the outside edge, the neck, the front, the waistband, and the other front is pinned together. And we're going to sew on the self side because it is more stable than the lining. We don't want our lining to start stretching and distorting. So it'll be sewn all the way around. We'll do it in pieces. I'll do the zipper first with my zipper foot. Sew as far down as I can. I cannot get to the corner, that's okay. Then I will do the rest, the waist, the neckline, I'll do with the regular foot and sew them up. Now, one last thing. We've got all that pinned and ready to sew. We're going to pin and get the sleeve ready to sew. Now on this side of the sleeve, on the lining, I've left a hole, and I've left a pretty good size hole. 6 to 8 inches is sufficient right here in the lining. So you could cut it open if you've already sewn it up, no worries. And then you want to take your 2 sleeves. See the sleeve in the underarm seam? And the sleeve over here with the underarm seam. And we're going to make them hold hands. And we're going to take this edge right here of the lining and fold it down like a little cuff. This makes it easy to attach this. And then you take this little guy, and you want to take the seam and put him right to the edge of this seam. See? And you're going to pin that underarm seam right there. Right sides together, cuffs folded in. See? Right there, right there. And you're going to go along through here and pin just that part you folded up. You're going to pull your cuff nice and taut, and you're going to pin all the way around through here, because you're going to sew these together too after you've sewn the body together. And I'm going to pin it and show you what it's going to look like all the way around through here. Now if you have to adjust it as you go, that's okay, because remember, one has a cuff on it, the rib cuff, and it might come out slightly smaller. Mine's coming out almost perfect, which is really good. So you just want to pull it so it's nice and taut. And then what you have here after you pin it. So you have the sleeves attached, right sides together, and you're going to sew around this edge. And we're going to do both sleeves that way. So let me go start sewing it, and then we'll take a look at what we have after that. So what I'm doing now, I decided instead of sewing the bottom and the neck first, I'm going to do the zipper. It's a little more difficult. Put the zipper foot back on. I've got it set on 3 length, and I'm just going to go as comfortably close as I can to the bottom corner, and I'm going to sew alongside my zipper here. All I'm really concerned about right here at this point is catching the lining. So I'm just going to go down and back up, and I'm going to sew all along the zipper. Just trying to stay on the stitch that I made previously. That's why I have the sew up, so I can see my stitch. Plus it prevents the lining from stretching and get distorted if it's on the bottom. And I'm just going to go all the way up through here until I reach the top neck. And at that point I'll stop, and then I'll sew the other side of the zipper, and then I'll sew the neckline with a different foot. So I'm going to go all the way up here, just like that, and just back up gently. And one side of my zipper's already put in. Now, let's move on. I want to show you one other thing. I'm going to release this foot and change back to my regular foot, and I'm going to show you how to sew that cuff. Remember, the cuffs are holding hands, so to speak. They've got right sides together, and they're ready to be sewn. So let's look at this one more time. See, the right sides of my cuff are together. I've taken the two, let them meet, and then I've put the right sides together. It is a little easier if you fold the lining over and then stick this one on and then grab the edge. It makes it a little easier to handle. You just want to make sure you keep your lining out of the way on the bottom. I want to start on my seam over here, right on my seam line, where I've got them matched up. And I'm going to put my foot in there, and I'm just going to simply sew all the way around this cuff opening. Now I'll do it over here, and then I'll do it on the other cuff. Sew the waistband and the neckline, and then it'll be time to turn my lining. So let's go ahead and do this. I want you to see how it's done. You have to pull little bits. You just do baby steps, little bits at a time. And just sew right on the seam where you were before. When I'm moving my fabric, I like to keep my needle in the fabric so it doesn't slip out while I'm readjusting my fabric to pull more around to sew. Sew about every 2 or 3 inches, and then readjust your fabric. Try to remember to keep your needle in the fabric when you're doing the readjusting. That way it doesn't slip out while you're pulling the fabric around. See, it's not really that hard if you just do it in baby steps and try not to visualize the whole big thing. And we're almost back to where we started here. One more pull. Take the pin out. I'm taking the pins out as I come to them, and I put them in linear parallel to the edge so I can get a hold of them. Now if something happens, you sew a little tuck in your lining, don't worry about it. You can turn it over, clip the tuck out, and just re-sew it. It's just not that big a deal. So I'm almost back to where I started, at the seam. So I'm just going to go up, back up, and the two are now attached. I'll just check for any tucks on this side. It looks pretty good. And there it is. My sleeve is put together. So when I turn this, I'll have a clean finish at my cuff without any hand sewing. So let me go ahead. I'm going to finish sewing the bottom and the neckline and the other cuff, and then I'm going to come back to the table and show you how to turn this and finish it off.